Snow fell heavily on Atlantic Avenue as Maya Tran, a young nurse at Brooklyn Hospital, stepped out of her final night shift. The city still glowed with lights, but at the corner of the Atlantic Terminal bus station, the dim yellow streetlights reflected on her face, a moment that seemed ordinary but would vanish from every camera just minutes later. When dawn broke, Maya didn't return home, didn't show up for her next shift, and the entire city seemed to have swallowed her without a trace. In the early days, everyone believed she had simply gone somewhere until a black pickup truck surfaced in a witness's vague statement, then disappeared like Maya herself. 7 years later, a young female investigator stumbled upon the forgotten case file and discovered that seemingly innocuous numbers were telling a story far more horrific than any theory. And from that cold data, a secret buried deep beneath the concrete of Red Hook would shake all of Brooklyn. On a winter night in 2008, Brooklyn was cloaked in a thin layer of fog, with snow falling lightly on the wet, cold streets. The yellow streetlights reflected off puddles, stretching the shadows of the few people still wandering the city. Wind swept through the old buildings, carrying damp air and the distant rumble of the subway beneath the streets. Near Brooklyn Hospital Center, Maya Tran, a 26-year-old night shift nurse, pulled her coat tight, adjusted her crossbody bag, and left the hospital after a grueling 12-hour shift. She typically took the late bus from Atlantic Terminal to her small apartment in Borum Hill, just a few blocks away. Her routine was consistent, never deviating. Colleagues described Maya as obsessively punctual, never leaving a shift without a thorough handover. That night, her shift ended just before midnight. She said goodbye to the head nurse, stepped out the main door, and melted into the city's frigid air. A convenience store clerk at the corner recalled a young woman stopping by to buy a hot coffee. She was polite, soft-spoken, walking quickly like she was afraid of missing her bus. He later recounted. Afterward, Maya continued along the sidewalk, coffee in hand, steam rising into the misty fog. She crossed the street toward the Atlantic Terminal bus stop, where the glow of billboards reflected off the snow, casting a pale, quiet light. Around the same time, a taxi driver waiting for fares near the shopping center noticed a young woman standing by the bus stop sign. He remembered her wearing a light-colored coat, her long dark hair spilling over the collar, her face obscured by the shadow of a street lamp. She stood there for a few minutes, looking around, then seemed to step toward the curb. When he turned his cab around and glanced back, she was gone. That was the last time anyone saw Maya Tran. The night passed as quietly as any other. No reports of disturbances, no unusual incidents, just the cold stillness of a Brooklyn winter. The next morning at the hospital, the shift supervisor noted Maya's absence from the roster, something that had never happened before. Her phone was off. She didn't respond to colleagues' texts or call her mother as usual. By afternoon, when all attempts to reach her failed, her mother drove to Maya's apartment. The door was locked, the deadbolt unscratched, the bedroom light was on, a glass of water on the table still faintly cold, the bed neatly made. In the kitchen, the wall clock had stopped, its hands pointing at 12. There were no signs of a struggle or break-in. Everything was too quiet. The mother walked through the apartment, calling her daughter's name, but only echoes from the bare walls answered. The heavy silence sparked a sinking feeling of dread. By nightfall, worry turned to panic. She called the hospital again, questioned every colleague and close friend of Maya's. No one knew anything. The young woman seemed to have vanished from the bustling city without a trace. Finally, when all rational possibilities were exhausted, the mother picked up the phone, her hands trembling, and dialed 911. Her voice broke as she told the operator, "My daughter is missing." It was 8 o'clock in the evening when the city's clocks marked the moment. And at that precise moment, the Maya Tran case officially began. A story Brooklyn would talk about for years to come. When the mother hung up after reporting the disappearance, the clock in Maya's small apartment had just passed 8. Outside, snow fell again, thin as dust, coating the streets that shimmered under yellow lights. The wail of police sirens cut through the quiet neighborhood, and soon, 2 officers from NYPD's 84th Precinct knocked on the apartment door. The small, cramped room was lit by harsh neon, casting a cold glow on the plain white walls. The mother stood silently in the kitchen corner, clutching her phone, her eyes filled with confusion. The officers took her statement, snapped preliminary photos, and called the station to request a detective. They had no idea this missing person case would become one of Brooklyn's longest-running mysteries. When Detective Harold Carter stepped through the door, the clock read 9:07. A middle-aged man, with salt and pepper hair and a low voice, Carter had a habit of noting every detail in an old leather notebook. Having worked in Brooklyn for over 20 years, he'd investigated dozens of missing persons cases, most of which had resolutions, until this one. He moved slowly through the apartment, his eyes scanning every detail. A spare coat hung on the rack. A pair of nurse's shoes, dusted with road salt, sat neatly by the door. A cold cup of tea rested on the table, and the wall clock was frozen at 12. The door was locked from the inside, with no signs of forced entry or struggle. No unfamiliar footprints marked the floor. Everything seemed frozen in time from the moment Maya left for work. Carter quietly wrote in his notebook, "No sign of forced entry, apartment intact." He asked the mother about her daughter's habits. She explained that Maya always came home after late shifts, often stopping at a convenience store near the hospital for coffee, then walking to Atlantic Terminal to catch the number 52 bus. She'd never failed to return, never turned off her phone. Carter surveyed the apartment once more, his gaze lingering on a set of spare keys in a wooden tray, a small detail proving Maya hadn't forgotten her keys when she left. She'd gone to work, intending to come back. The next morning, Carter visited Brooklyn Hospital Center. Fog still hung in the air, the sky a dull gray. The HR department confirmed Maya had completed her shift at 11:40 p.m., handing over duties, without issue, showing no signs of distress or exhaustion. A night shift colleague said she seemed cheerful, a bit sleepy as usual. No one saw her after she left through the hospital's east entrance. Carter requested security to pull all footage from the area. After an hour of review, they found Maya on camera in her white uniform, wearing a light-colored coat, holding a coffee cup, exiting the hospital at 11. That was the last time the internal cameras captured her. From the hospital, Carter headed to Atlantic Terminal, a busy and complex transit hub where multiple bus and subway lines converged. The tech team provided camera data, but most had been overwritten. After sifting through stacks of drives, Carter found a single video preserved on an old hard drive from a street camera. In it, Maya appeared at 11:56 p.m., walking along the sidewalk, pausing under the bus stop sign. She held her coffee, one hand gripping her bag strap. A large vehicle with bright headlights appeared in the distance. At that moment, the camera signal scrambled and cut out. The footage stopped at 11:58 p.m. No images followed. Carter frowned. A camera malfunctioning precisely during the time of her disappearance was an unlikely coincidence. He called the tech team to recover the data and ordered a sweep of the area around the bus stop. A night shift security guard at Atlantic Terminal was questioned. The guard recalled, "I saw a black pickup parked near the bus stop, headlights on, engine idling low. It was there for about 10 minutes, then left when I stepped out for a smoke. I didn't see anyone get in, but I think the license plate started with a..." Carter jotted down the description, marking it in red ink, his habit for critical details. To verify, he deployed a K9 unit the next morning. A dog was given Maya's coat to sniff, then led along her usual walking route. The scent trail was clear from the hospital, through 2 blocks, and stopped at a parking lot behind the bus stop. The dog circled several times, then looked up, halting. The trail ended. Carter knelt, touching the ground where snow was disturbed by tire tracks. He knew what it meant. The scent stopped because the person had left the ground, possibly forced into a vehicle. Back at the station, Carter pieced together the facts. Maya left her shift at 11:40 p.m., appeared at Atlantic Terminal at 11:56 p.m., and vanished 2 minutes later. No credit card transactions, no calls leaving the area. No witnesses saw her leave the city. Only a black pickup, a faulty camera, and a scent trail ending in a parking lot. Carter sat in his office, fluorescent lights casting a stark glow on his open notebook. He tapped his pen, rereading every line. Everything pointed to this being more than a simple disappearance. He opened his computer, typing an official report for his commander. The final line, he typed slowly, his hands heavy. Preliminary conclusion: foul play suspect. Outside, the sky began to lighten. Thin snow blanketed the first missing person flyers posted around the neighborhood. Maya's face stared back from the white sheets, her calm eyes seeming to say, "I'm still here, waiting for you to find me." For Carter, the real investigation began at that moment. Lawadosaskater sat quietly in his office as the sky outside turned to dawn. The snow had stopped, but the gray light of morning draped Brooklyn in a chilling hue. On his desk, his preliminary report lay open, the line "foul play suspected" standing out starkly against the white page. He sipped cold coffee, staring out the window. Below, the first police cars of the day rolled out, their lights flashing slowly in the misty haze. A gnawing unease clung to him. A young woman vanishing in a bustling city. No sound, no clear evidence. Everything was suspiciously silent. That morning, the search operation officially launched, and we partnered with CERT, a community emergency response team experienced in disaster and missing person cases. Carter was at the staging area near Atlantic Terminal. Dozens of volunteers gathered, wearing reflective vests, armed with flashlights and search team armbands. A Brooklyn map was spread across a police car hood, red circles marking search zones: Flatbush Avenue, Myrtle Avenue, and the old Brooklyn Navy Yard. The air was tense, voices hushed, as if afraid to disturb any faint clue left behind. Among the volunteers, a young man approached Carter, extending a hand. "Ethan Doyle, Brooklyn CERT coordinator," he introduced himself, his voice low but clear. "My team's ready. We'll follow your lead." Carter nodded, impressed by Doyle's calm professionalism. Tall and sturdy, with sharp but unreadable eyes, Doyle spoke directly, his gaze steady, yet carrying something both earnest and cold, as he scanned the surroundings. The search team split into 4 groups, each assigned a 1-mile radius around Maya's last known location. Carter led the first group along Flatbush Avenue, one of Brooklyn's busiest streets. The snow had melted into thin mud, revealing tire tracks and plastic litter. K-9 units led the way, noses sweeping over puddles and curbs. Each time a dog paused, Carter noted the spot, but nothing significant surfaced. On Myrtle Avenue, Doyle's group worked quickly and methodically. He used an old area map, marking abandoned buildings and dead-end alleys. Under his command, volunteers divided tasks. Some searched basements, others rooftops, stairwells, and parking lots. "We're looking for a person, not just clues," Doyle told his team. "If there's a chance, we have to believe she's still out there." His words motivated many, but Carter, hearing them over the radio, sensed something off in Doyle's tone, calm to the point of chilling, as if he'd already accepted the opposite. By afternoon, Carter and the officers shifted to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, an old industrial area by the river, once a sprawling shipyard now mostly abandoned. Inside was a maze of rusted warehouses, iron stairs, and broken containers. Wind from the river whistled through metal doors, creating an eerie hum. Flashlights swept over peeling paint, metallic dust glinting faintly. The K-9 units sniffed everywhere, chasing any faint scent. One dog stopped by a tree near Warehouse 17, barking softly. An officer bent down, shining a flashlight, and picked up something stuck in the mud, a small, frayed gray fabric. Carter took it, sealing it in an evidence bag. The thin polyester material looked strikingly similar to a medical uniform. "Could it be her?" Doyle asked, his voice calm, eyes fixed on the fabric. "Could be," Carter replied. "We'll send it for analysis. No conclusions until results come back. This area gets strong winds," Doyle added. "It might have blown in from somewhere else." Carter gave a slight nod, saying nothing. But Doyle's comment lingered in his mind like a suspicious mark. As dusk fell, the searchers returned to the staging area. Exhausted, boots caked in mud, faces flushed from the cold. The police collected the day's evidence, just the small fabric and a few unidentified tire tracks. No body, no signs of a struggle, no new witnesses. Disappointment hung heavy in the air. Carter leaned against his car, staring at the muddy footprints crisscrossing the ground. He knew this feeling when a missing person case began slipping beyond a standard search, when hope dwindled to blind persistence. Before leaving, he noticed Doyle standing nearby, talking to other volunteers. Under the yellow parking lot lights, Doyle's shadow stretched across the patchy snow. As the group dispersed, he remained, eyes fixed on the dark warehouses where the last flashlights faded. His gaze was long, still, and unreadable. That night, in the temporary investigation office, Carter opened his notebook and wrote, "No body found. 1 fabric sample sent to lab. Search to resume at dawn. He closed it, hearing the wind howl outside like a repeated warning. His gut told him this case wouldn't close easily, that the man named Doyle, with his calm voice and two cold eyes, wasn't just a helpful volunteer. He didn't know why yet, but the feeling took root, and in cases like this, instincts were often more reliable than any evidence. The next morning, as faint sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, Carter was already at the precinct. Coffee steamed on his desk, surrounded by case files, maps, crime scene photos, CERT reports, and at the center, a clear evidence bag holding the gray fabric from Navy Yard. The label read, "Evidence, Brooklyn Missing Case Tran Maya" in bold black ink. Carter turned the bag in his hands, light glinting off the plastic, highlighting the thin frayed material. It seemed unremarkable, a small piece torn from somewhere, but to Carter, missing person cases often hinged on such seemingly trivial details. The fabric was sent to NYPD's Forensic Services Division in Queens for testing. Under an electron microscope, the lab identified it as polyester, matching the type used in hospital uniforms Maya wore the night she vanished. The preliminary report stated, consistent with hospital-grade polyester blend, color code matches uniform type B, but there was no blood, no human DNA, no hair, no fingerprints to compare. The fabric was clean, suspiciously so. Carter read the report, chin resting on his hand, eyes fixed on the dry conclusion, no biological trace detected. He wondered, if Maya had been attacked, if there was a struggle, why did the fabric bear no traces? Was it torn in a scuffle, or dropped elsewhere, deliberately to mislead? He knew that in missing person cases, nothing was ever coincidental. While the tech team worked, Carter returned to Atlantic Terminal to check surrounding cameras. A technician explained that most original footage had been overwritten after 30 days, with only a few backup drives holding short clips. They opened each file, but the frames showed only buses pulling away, sparse foot traffic, nothing clear about Maya after 11:56 p.m. Carter patiently rewound clips, eyes glued to the blurry screen, streetlights smudged in snow, figures blending into vehicle shadows. Nothing concrete. Looks like the cameras are against us too, the technician half joked. Carter nodded faintly, saying nothing. He was used to critical evidence vanishing just when needed. That afternoon, Carter visited shops around Atlantic Terminal for more witnesses. A delivery man in his 30s said he was in the area the night Maya disappeared. "I remember a black pickup, loud engine. It was parked near the bus stop, then sped off when I turned around. It was close to midnight. Streets empty. I didn't see the driver, just the red taillights fading into the fog." He was certain of the time, having just finished his last delivery. Carter noted carefully, pickup, black, loud engine, near bus stop, approx. Back at the office, he pieced together the fragments. A strange vehicle, a camera failure, a uniform scrap, a scent trail ending in a parking lot. All pointed to Maya being forced to leave the area by car. But it was still just a theory, lacking solid data. No license plate, no direct witnesses, no physical evidence, just fragile, scattered details. In cases like this, Carter knew the first 72 hours were golden, and that window had closed. He leaned back in his chair, flipping through his note. Each page marked a small milestone in the case, but the more he read, the emptier he felt. Under the yellow light, his neat, sharp handwriting seemed to blur, like his fading belief that the young woman was still alive. On the 5th day, after Maya's disappearance, the lab's official analysis arrived. Carter opened the envelope, reading slowly. Fiber analysis confirms material consistent with uniform worn by the victim. No blood trace, no biological residue, no environmental contamination. Coldly straightforward, he set the paper down, fingers tapping lightly on the desk. The way the fabric was found lying in mud, free of dust, no fresh tears, unsettled him. A piece of a uniform left in a windy warehouse area for days, yet clean. It didn't add up. Carter returned to Navy Yard. The afternoon wind stung his face like cold knives. The spot where the fabric was found still bore footprints in the frozen mud. He crouched, looking around. The warehouses stood silent, their rusted doors creaking, wind whistling through cracks. He looked toward the river, where the sunset cast a bronze glow on the water. Something remained just out of his reach, like a puzzle piece deliberately hidden. As he returned to his car, his phone rang. It was his superior. "No new leads." "No, sir," Carter replied. "All we have is a piece of fabric and a truck with no plate." A brief silence, then a curt response, "Close the file for now. We'll follow up if anything new comes in." Carter looked back at the darkening warehouse. He gripped his notebook, the morning's final entry still there. One small fabric sample sent to lab. Now he added another, short and cold as the afternoon. No new leads, case cooling. Night fell quickly, the river's damp wind sweeping through the empty warehouses, rattling a rusted sign reading, "Authority-side personnel only." Carter glanced at the gray sky, knowing that in a few days, the fabric would be just a number in the evidence log, and Maya Tran's name would sink to the bottom of a file cabinet. He hated that feeling, the powerlessness when someone vanishes, and the world keeps turning as if nothing happened. And so the case began to go cold, as silent as the street where the young woman disappeared without a trace. Driving back to the precinct, Carter glanced in the rearview mirror, the yellow glow of Navy Yard fading behind him. The old warehouses stood silent, their steel frames stark in the freezing fog. He knew he'd just left the scene of a disappearance, or worse, a crime where the perpetrator had erased every trace. The single piece of fabric sent to the lab sat in its evidence bag, small and meaningless among hundreds of pending case files. Carter took a deep breath, a heavy weight settling in his chest. He'd investigated long enough to recognize a case slipping into the void, where clues vanish and answers are buried by time. The next morning, a briefing was held at a Brooklyn map covered the table, dotted with red marks for searched areas. Carter detailed the investigation, no new witnesses, no additional evidence, the fabric devoid of DNA or blood. "We'll canvass everyone around Atlantic Terminal," taxi drivers, shop workers, night crews, anyone there between 11:30 and 12:30. His superior nodded, granting one more week before considering a transfer to cold case status. Over the next 5 days, the team fanned out across Brooklyn. They interviewed dozens of cab drivers, checked GPS data from transport companies. No one recalled picking up a woman named Maya that night. Carter spoke to every night shift worker at the shopping center, guards, clerks, delivery drivers. They all shook their heads. No one saw anything notable beyond a dark-colored truck with no clear plate. Those vague descriptions only muddied the case further. Next, Carter met Maya's friends and colleagues. Everyone described her as gentle, quiet, private. No conflicts, no debts, no enemies. One coworker recalled Maya mentioning a strange man, often seen near the bus stop in the weeks prior, though he never approached. She said it was probably just a coincidence, the friend noted. Carter jotted it down, circling unknown male, then dismissed it. Having worked dozens of cases, he knew strange men were often shadows conjured by memory after tragedy struck. He didn't stop there. Carter contacted Maya's bank and phone carrier to trace her financial activity. 3 days later, the results came back. No credit card transactions or ATM withdrawals since the night she vanished. Her phone was off, emitting no signal. Everything was severed from the world at precisely 11:58 p.m. that night. The report's "no activity detected" felt like a cold verdict. Carter set the papers down, rubbing his face, a hollow feeling spreading through him. While police poured resources into the case, Maya's family kept searching in their own way. Her mother printed hundreds more flyers, posting them at train stations, hospitals, parks. Maya's photo, her gentle smile, soft eyes began appearing across Brooklyn. Friends volunteered, handing out flyers to passers-by. Some claimed to have seen a similar girl, but every lead hit a dead end. The local Asian community started an online group, sharing information, hoping for a miracle. Local media took notice. Evening News ran a 2-minute segment on the mysterious missing nurse in Brooklyn. A few online outlets published stories using police file photos, but within days, with no new developments, the story faded from headlines, replaced by other events. In this city, a missing person was just a fleeting news item among thousands each week. On the 12th day, Carter returned to Atlantic Terminal. He walked the sidewalk, eyeing the flyers plastered on poles, their edges wet and curling, ink smudged by rain. Some were already torn by the wind. He stood still for a long time at the exact spot Maya was last seen on camera. Cars streamed by, people passed, but everything felt distant. He pictured her leaving the hospital, coffee in hand, stepping into the cold night. The gap between that moment and the camera's blackout was just 16 minutes. 16 minutes when all of Brooklyn's data went silent. Back at the precinct, Carter sat in his empty office, the wall clock ticking. His superior entered, holding the report. "No new data?" he asked curtly. "None," Carter replied. "The cold case unit will take it next week." He looked at the paper stamped "cold pending" in red. Each time he saw those words, a part of him sank. It was the system's way of saying the case wasn't closed, but no one could do more. On the 14th night, Carter drove across the Manhattan Bridge. The city's lights reflected on the river, cold and still as a mirror. He pulled over, gazing at the distant streets where the disappearance began. He knew that tomorrow, the Maya Tran file would leave his desk, filed away in storage, with hundreds of other names waiting for a chance at revival. But his gut refused to let go. In his mind, the gray fabric and the black pickup kept circling back. At home, he opened his investigation journal, writing the final line in slow, deliberate strokes. Search concluded. No suspect identified. Case status, cold pending. He closed the book, setting it beside his bedside lamp. Outside, snow began falling again, light and steady, as if draping a thin blanket over everything, including a case that had just officially gone silent. Snow fell through the night, blanketing the quiet streets in white. In Carter's small apartment, his desk lamp cast light on his open investigation journal. The last line was still fresh. Search concluded. Case status, cold pending. Below it he wrote nothing more. That was the last time Maya Tran's name appeared in his notebook for years. In the first month after the case went cold, the Tran-Maya file was stored in Archive Room 4, in NYPD's basement. A sealed cardboard box held all evidence: crime scene maps, bus stop photos, interview transcripts, and a small plastic bag with the gray fabric. The box's label read coldly, "Missing person, unresolved." The metal door closed, locked with a rusted padlock. Time flowed like a sluggish river. Each year, on December 12, Maya's mother sent a letter to NYPD, asking for updates. The letters were neat, handwritten, sometimes just a few lines. "Please tell me, are you still looking for her?" All received the same printed reply: "We regret to inform you, the case remains open, with no new developments, no calls, no meetings." To the system, the case was just a number in a growing unresolved catalog. 2010, Carter remained at the precinct, but each time he passed the archive room, he glanced at the MTRN shelf. Maya's box sat untouched. Sometimes, he'd open the metal door, step into the room thick with the smell of damp paper and rust, and look at the hundreds of boxes holding names he'd once chased. He touched Maya's box, not opening it, and left a small note: "Still missing, still remember." The city moved on, as if nothing had happened. In 2011, a massive Bronx fire dominated headlines. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy swept through New York, diverting all resources to recovery. Cold cases sank deeper into the shadows of story. The Missing Persons Project lost funding, leaving only a few investigators juggling cases part-time. Maya's mother, now visibly aged, stayed in her Borum Hill apartment. Her door was always slightly ajar, a framed photo of her daughter and a small candle on the living room table. Occasionally she received odd calls, someone claiming to have seen a girl like Maya in Chinatown, New Jersey, or even Pennsylvania. But police checks always proved them wrong. Each false lead crushed her hope anew. Carter retired in 2013 after 30 years on the force. On his last day, he visited the archive room one final time. He stopped at the M shelf, where Maya's files sat, its label faded and curling. He stood silently for minutes, as if waiting for something, then removed his old note and slipped it into his pocket. Closing the door gently, he heard the lock click, its echo lingering in the hallway. With Carter gone, Maya's file was handed to the cold case unit. A young investigator, Naomi Chen, was assigned to manage long-dormant missing person cases. In the lengthy list she received, Tran, Maya 2008, was line 47. Chen skimmed it, marking it unresolved, pending review. She didn't know that 6 years later, that name would change her life. The case's remaining evidence was resealed under new regulation. The gray fabric was placed in a vacuum-sealed bag, labeled for preservation. The attached tech report was updated. Item preserved, no DNA found. Those dry numbers were all that remained of Maya in the system. No voice, no image, just a few characters in a database. By 2014, the file was officially relabeled Status, Unresolved, Missing Person. For NYPD, It was standard procedure for an unsolved case. For Maya's family, it was an indefinite sentence, neither declared dead nor confirmed alive. Just missing, forever suspended between worlds. In an old drawer at home, Carter kept a photo from Atlantic Terminal in 2008, Maya's last appearance on camera. He didn't know why he held onto it. Perhaps because he never believed in ending. But somewhere, he also knew he'd left the game, and the answer, if it existed, now belonged to someone else. Maya's mother kept sending letters to NYPD each year, written in small, neat script. If you still have her file, please don't throw it away. She's still out there. No one replied. Her final letter in 2014 wasn't forwarded. A new clerk simply folded it, clipped it to the file, and placed it back on the shelf, closing the cabinet. The archive room door shut, sinking into silence. Hundreds of boxes lay still under dim lights, soundless, forgotten. Amid the thick dust and smell of old paper, Maya Tran's name faded on the box label, barely legible. 6 years passed like this. No evidence, no answers, no return. In Brooklyn, cases like this never truly ended. They just grew quieter. The archive room door closed, swallowed by silence and dust. Maya Tran's name faded on the box label, one of hundreds sleeping in the dark. 6 years passed. The world outside changed, but in NYPD's basement, time stood still. Then, in the fall of 2015, as the city buzzed about new investigative technologies, another hand unlocked that rusted lock. Detective Naomi Chen had just transferred from the cybercrime unit to the cold case squad. In her early 30s, Chinese-American, petite with sharp, patient eyes, she was tasked with reviewing over 50 unsolved missing person cases. In a neon-lit room filled with towering file cabinets, she pulled open drawers, reading names, coded in times. That morning, opening the TU drawer, she found a darkened cardboard box labeled Tran, Maya missing, Brooklyn. A red mark read, cold pending. Chen lifted it down, blowing dust off the lid. Inside were old documents, crime scene photos, Atlantic Terminal maps, forensic reports, and a small plastic bag with the gray fabric. She read Carter's old report, the final line still there. Case cooling. No new lead. But in the bottom left corner of an interview transcript, Chen noticed a handwritten note, pickup truck, unidentified. She lingered on that line. A small, faint detail, but more concrete than anything else in the file. A vehicle. Something that could leave a trail. Chen carried the box to her desk, opened her laptop, and accessed the NYPD evidence archive. The system, newly implemented in 2015, linked old cases to traffic and tech data. Entering Maya Tran 2008 Brooklyn, the results were sparse. No active leads, no updated evidence. But Chen didn't stop there. She went to her supervisor, Lieutenant Mark O'Reilly, head of the cold case unit. I want to reopen a 2008 missing person case, she said, placing the old file on his desk. Victim, Maya Tran. Detective Carter's report. There's a detail about an unidentified pickup truck. O'Reilly flipped through a few pages, raising an eyebrow. You know we have dozens of open cases, and this one has no DNA evidence. Chen responded evenly. But we have tech now that they didn't. I want to try ALPR, Easy Pass, and cell site data to recheck the area the night she vanished. O'Reilly studied her for a moment, then nodded. You've got 3 weeks. If nothing turns up, we close it again. Chen started work that day. She contacted the city's transportation department, requesting access to automatic license plate recognition, ALPR data cameras, capturing vehicle plates. Though most 2008 data was gone, she knew temporary backups existed in the Department of Transportation's digital archive. She filed a request, citing Rule 41A of the Investigation Code, allowing data recovery for cold cases. Simultaneously, she applied for Easy Pass data access, the state's toll system that could track vehicle movements for a decade. A vehicle crossing a bridge or highway during Maya's disappearance might leave a trace. Finally, Chen asked technicians to reanalyze 2008 cell site data from phone carriers around Atlantic Terminal on December. Her goal: identify devices active at the time, especially those matching the pickup's location. The first 3 weeks were long days in her small office, amid the hum of printers and fluorescent lights. Chen organized Maya's file chronologically, sticking colored notes to each milestone. Left hospital, 11:56 appeared at Atlantic Terminal, 11:58 camera cut out. After midnight, pickup sighted. She pinned a Brooklyn map to the wall, connecting points with red string. From a distance, the case looked like a maze of scattered data points. Late at night, when the office was lit only by her desk lamp, Chen pored over Carter's investigation journal. She understood he'd done all he could with the tools of his time. But now, technology could overturn old limitations. No case is truly dead, she told her. It's just that no one's looked in the right direction. By month's end, the Transportation Department responded. They'd recovered partial ALPR data from December 2. Though only 60% remained, it was enough to restore some vehicle images around Atlantic Terminal during Maya's disappearance. Chen read the report, her heart racing. She knew she'd found a starting point. She reopened the file. Looking at Maya's photo again, 6 years of silence had passed, but the sense of loss lingered in every page. Chen set the photo on her desk, pulled out her pen, and added a new line to the case log. Cold case GRN08. Reopened. Requesting data restoration and cross-matching. Investigator, Det Naomi Chen. As she signed her name, the office light glinted off the text like a small, cold spark. The first sign of life the case had seen in 7 years. This time, Maya Tran was no longer just a name on a box label. The office lamp reflected off Chen's freshly signed note, the green ink still wet. She leaned back, gazing at Maya's photo pinned beside the caseboard, the girl's calm, distant eyes seeming to watch back. On her desk, a sealed folder from the Transportation Department bore the label ALPR Archive, December 2008, Brooklyn Sector. Chen carefully opened it, revealing a small black hard drive and a thin stack of printouts. She plugged the drive into her computer, the screen filling with thousands of code lines and grainy images, snapshots, from the city's 2008 license plate recognition cameras. ALPR tech in 2008 was rudimentary. Cameras on poles captured vehicle images, software read plates, and logged times and locations. Low resolution, glitchy data, and 30-day storage were the norm. Recovering even a fraction was near miraculous. Chen opened the folder, Atlantic Terminal, Deck 12, 11:00 p.m., 12:30 a.m. Images loading one by one. Most showed buses, taxis, or private cars. She slowed the playback at 11:53 p.m., just after Maya left the hospital. At frame 3217, she noticed an unusual reflection of headlights in the corner. The image was blurry, but when zoomed, it revealed a black pickup parked by the road near Atlantic Terminal's bus stop. Chen marked the frame, checking the next few files. At 12, the same truck appeared again, now moving toward the Manhattan Bridge. Same vehicle, same headlight style, same small scratch on the driver's door. Her heart raced, half from excitement, half from disbelief. After 7 years, the first image of the truck from Carter's file had surfaced. Chen extracted the frames, opening NYPD's new video forensic software. She adjusted brightness, reduced noise, and ran optical character recognition on the plate. The system took minutes, the progress bar crawling. When finished, it displayed K84 with the last 3 characters too blurry to read. Chen bit her lip, but allowed a small smile. 4 characters were a start. She entered K84 into the DMV database, filtering for black pickup trucks registered in Brooklyn or Queens. The results came faster than expected. Only 3 vehicles matched. The first belonged to a Long Island transport company, scrapped in 20. The second was reported stolen in the Bronx in 2009. The third was registered to an individual named Ethan Doyle, residing in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Chen froze, eyes locked on the screen. She dug into Carter's old file. In the 2008 witness list, the name appeared: Ethan Doyle, volunteer, Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. The man who joined the search for Maya in the first week she vanished. Without a word, Chen stood, paced the room, and took a deep breath. Cold cases like this often offered only faint leads. A DNA sample, a late witness, an anonymous call. But this was verifiable physical evidence. A vehicle, 2 frames, a name tied to the case from the start. She returned to her desk, opened her recorder, and dictated clearly. October 5, 2015, 08:47 a.m. During ALPR data review. For 2008, at Atlantic Terminal, a black pickup truck was identified appearing twice at the victim's disappearance site. Plate recovered, First four characters. DMV crosscheck shows 3 matching vehicles, one registered in Brooklyn to Ethan Doyle, a CERT volunteer in the 2008 victim search. Chen saved the recording, looking back at the screen. In the cold office light, the blurry truck image glowed, its front angled toward the bus stop, headlights glaring into the camera as if to obscure the view. She zoomed in on the rear, noting a circular mark, perhaps a sticker or a collision scratch. Such details could confirm the vehicle if it still existed. That afternoon, Chen briefed O'Reilly. He listened silently, then said, "If this data holds, you've just revived the first lead in 7 years, but we need field verification." He approved her request to access EasyPass and cell site data for the 3K84 plates. As Chen left the office, afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, casting her shadow long across the floor. She held the blurry plate printout, folding it carefully. With each step, she felt a familiar stirring, not quite hope, but the sense that an old case was stirring back to life. In her small office, the computer stayed on. The 208 frames remained displayed, grainy and faded, but at the screen's bottom was a new entry, ALPR hit to occurrence, vehicle type, black pickup truck, location, Atlantic Terminal, possible owner, Doyle Ethan. 7 years of silence had been broken. For the first time since Maya vanished, the case had a real direction, and Chen knew, when a cold case begins to stir, it doesn't stop until everything is laid bare. Now the screen's final line glowed. Possible owner, Doyle Ethan, in the dimly lit room. Chen stared at the name, her mind flipping back through Carter's hundreds of file pages. Ethan Doyle appeared briefly in the search team report. Volunteer, CERT unit, assisted during first 72 hours. A man who helped search for the victim was now linked to the suspicious vehicle at the exact time she disappeared. Chen leaned back, closed her eyes for a moment, then reopened her computer. She verified the DMV data again. Chevrolet Silverado pickup, black, 204 model. Owner, Ethan Doyle, 33, Red Hook, Brooklyn. The address sent a chill through her. Red Hook, just miles from the crime scene, near the old docks, searched fruitlessly into. She accessed CERT's personnel records for more. The file noted, Ethan Doyle, Brooklyn. CERT coordinator active, 2007, 2012, no disciplinary record. In Carter's report, he was listed among those aiding police at Navy Yard and Flatbush Avenue. Chen typed slowly into her notes. Possible link between CERT coordinator and suspect vehicle. Subject assisted in original search. Need timeline verification. That afternoon, Chen requested access to CERT's personnel and volunteer shift logs. At the data center, she found the schedule for December 12, 2008, the night Maya vanished. The entry read, Doyle, Ethan, scheduled off-duty, no deployment. She paused, rereading it. Not assigned to a shift, yet present at the search hours later. An odd coincidence. Chen photographed the screen, saving it to the case file. In her internal notes, she wrote, potential conflict of interest. Back at the office, Chen opened Carter's 2008 interview video. The grainy footage shook slightly, wind mixing with the audio. Carter was speaking to volunteers. Among them stood a tall man in an orange reflective vest and black beanie. Ethan Doyle. He spoke calmly, his voice low. We searched around Navy Yard, found nothing. If anything new comes up, I'll report back. His eyes flicked to the camera, then away, a faint smile passing so quickly it was hard to tell if it was politeness or evasion. Chen paused the video, replaying the moment slowly. In the dim light, Doyle's face sharpened, a piercing gaze, yet somehow empty. She exhaled softly, jotting in her notebook. Subject displayed calm demeanor during 2008 interview. No signs of anxiety. However, volunteered proximity to crime scene, unusual. That evening, she dug into Doyle's background. His record was suspiciously clean. Born in New Jersey, moved to Brooklyn in 2006. Studied mechanical engineering, no criminal history, no civil complaint. Neighbors described him as quiet, private, helpful at community events. No debts, no ties to crime. The profile felt meticulously polished, without a crack. But Chen knew that in long, cold cases, real culprits were often those no one suspected. She opened a Brooklyn map, reconnecting the points. Atlantic Terminal, where Maya vanished. Navy Yard, where the fabric was found. Red Hook, Doyle's address. The Les formed a near-perfect triangle, spanning just over 5 miles. She stared at the map, her heart heavy. The case was no longer a shapeless maze, it was narrowing into a tight circle. The next morning Chen briefed O'Reilly. He repeated the name, Ethan Doyle, then frowned. "I remember that case. He led the volunteer team, right?" Chen nodded. O'Reilly's brow furrowed. "If he's involved, he was in this from day one." He watched the entire search unfold. The words hung heavy in the room. "We don't have solid evidence yet," Chen said. "But the ALPR data and his off-duty status match the disappearance timeline. I need to check Easy Pass and cell site data to confirm his route." O'Reilly nodded slowly, signing the approval. "Go ahead." "And Chen," he paused, eyes stern, "don't share this lead with anyone, especially former CERT members. If he's involved, he knows how to cover tracks better than most." As Chen left, her mind swirled with questions. Could a man who led the search have ensured it was futile? She opened her phone, staring at the blurry pickup image. The K-84 plate appearing twice in the critical window, now tied to a specific name. In her internal notes, she added a bolded line, "Subject Ethan Doyle. Potential suspect. Conflict of interest confirmed." She saved the file, locked her computer screen. Outside, the city buzzed, oblivious to the fact that inside this building, a case thought dead for 7 years was coming back to life, and the circle of suspicion was tightening around the man who once stood at the forefront of the search. Naomi Chen reread the last line in the report before shutting down. Potential suspect identified Ethan Doyle. That name still lingered in her mind as she headed home that night. Doyle, once praised for leading the CERT team searching for Maya in 2008, now the focal point of all the data she'd gathered. If he was involved, it would close the loop in a cruel circle. The searcher was the hider. The next morning, Chen sent a request for Easy Pass data, New York State's electronic toll system, to verify the route of the black Chevrolet Silverado pickup registered to Ethan Doyle. The response came back the same day, just a few simple lines, but enough to stun her. 11th entry recorded at BQE, exit 27A, Atlantic Avenue, 12:23 a.m. Exit recorded at Red Hook toll segment, 1:01 a.m., re-entry toward Bay Ridge. The 3 timestamps matched perfectly with the window of Maya's disappearance and the inexplicable 2-hour gap. Chen plotted the coordinates on a map, the route emerging clearly: Atlantic Terminal, Red Hook Pier, Doyle's house. To corroborate, she requested the tech unit query Verizon cell site records. 2 days later, they sent back a spreadsheet of phone pings from the night of. Amid hundreds of mobile IDs, one stood out: 97P, 402, 77DX. Doyle's number, pinging from the tower near Red Hook Pier at 12:24 a.m. Then total disconnection until 6:30 a.m. right when he claimed he was at home prepping for his shift. Chen cross-referenced the 2 datasets, Easy Pass and cell site, all aligning. A journey starting from where Maya vanished, ending at a remote industrial area by the river. No other explanation made sense. Doyle had left Atlantic Terminal right after Maya disappeared. That evening, Chen presented the findings to Lieutenant O'Reilly and ADA Kelly Romano. In the NYPD's small conference room, she pulled up the map on screen. "This is Doyle's route. His truck left the BQE right when Maya vanished. And this," she pointed to the mobile signal chart, "is his phone signal at Red Hook." 2 independent systems telling the same story. Romano crossed her arms, eyes sharp. "Good. But for a search warrant, I need PSYC evidence, something irrefutable." Chen nodded. "We'll get it." She finalized the report that night, typing concisely but firmly. Forensic chain established. Easy Pass and cell site confirm route consistent with disappearance window. High probability link between suspect and victim. As the last line printed, Chen knew she'd crossed the line from suspicion to evidence. The Maya Tran case, after 7 years, was finally moving for real. 2 days later, ADA Kelly Romano signed off on an emergency search warrant for Ethan Doyle's house and vehicle. On the paper, she noted briefly, "Probable cause established, digital evidence supports warrant." For Chen, it was the starting signal for the most tense phase, entering the physical world where any mistake could invalidate the evidence. 6:45 a.m. The cold case team and forensic investigation unit gathered at Doyle's small Bay Ridge house. The black Chevrolet Silverado pickup was parked tight against the entrance, covered in a thin layer of dust. The scene was eerily still, as if this place had waited 7 years to be cracked open. "Proceed," Chen signaled. The truck door opened, a smell of damp and bleach rushing out. They started removing the floor mats, where traces often lingered, even after cleaning. At the passenger seat area, forensics found a faint gray stain, testing positive for hydrogen peroxide, a common organic remover. In the cargo bed, they collected a few white-gray granules caught in the metal floor seams. "Industrial cement," the tech said. "Matches the type used at Red Hook docks." In the garage, Chen and the team found a half-used bottle of industrial peroxide, a plastic bucket with white residue, and several half-opened cement bags. All sealed carefully, numbered, and photographed in place. When checking the house, the investigators noted the living room floor was completely retiled. Under the tiles, chemical scanners detected old peroxide traces, signs of thorough cleaning. Chen silently stared at the gleaming floor, clean to an unsettling degree. That evening, the forensics lab sent a preliminary report. Tire soil samples and cement dust matched 98% mineral structure with samples from the Red Hook Pier site in 2008. Same Portland cement mixed with sea sand. Plus, the peroxide in the truck matched the type sold at a pharmacy 3 blocks away. Receipt dated 12. Chen printed the report and handed it to Romano. The ADA read it and said just one thing. "For the first time, we have physical evidence." As night fell, Chen returned to the office. She pinned the evidence pieces to the board. Easy pass data, route map, truck mat photos, and soil samples. In the middle, she wrote in red pen, "Red Hook Pier, origin of truth." That night, as the city fell silent, the tech team continued analyzing every sample, and amid those thousands of dust particles, a story began to emerge. A story only soil and chemicals could tell. From the forensics report, Romano tasked Chen with finding visual evidence to bolster the file. In the MTA Surveillance Archive's old storage, Chen discovered a damaged hard drive recording the Atlantic Terminal area on the night of. Files marked corrupted, but with new image recovery tech, the forensic video unit could attempt reconstruction. The lab room was quiet, except for computer hums. The screen showed grainy black and white frames. After hours of processing, the software began restoring pixels. At 11:50 on the clock, Maya appeared, walking to the bus stop, coffee cup in hand, then glancing left. In the next frame, the shadow of a black pickup entered from the edge. The right fog light was angled off, matching the file description. A tall man in a dark jacket stepped out. Maya stepped back, mouth slightly open, but the camera glitched. 3 seconds later, the image showed only the man dragging something long toward the truck. Timestamp, 12:18 a.m. Chen held her breath, replaying frame by frame. Behind the windshield, a faint reflection showed cheekbone lines matching Doyle's CERT personnel photo. When the video ended, she cross-checked timestamps with tech data. Easy pass log 11:58, cell site ping 12:24, all matched perfectly. Chen sent a copy of the video to Romano. In the conference room, the team watched in silence as it played. Romano whispered, 7 years, and now we have her last image. She ended the report with one short line, "Recovered CCTV confirms visual link. Frame time matches, easy pass, and cell site records. Forensic chain complete." The still image extracted from the video, the figure in the snow, pickup light angled wrong, became the iconic shot in the TRN-08 file. With it, the chain of digital, physical, visual evidence closed completely, and Maya Tran, though gone, was finally seen again. The shadowy figure in the grainy CCTV footage still lingered in Chen's mind as she stepped out of the lab. The sight of Maya being dragged away, the pickup's headlights veering off, and the timestamp on the frame, 12:18 a.m., became the final piece in the scattered data chain. Now her task was to connect it all: GPS, CDR, cameras, easy pass, cell site, everything had to speak the same language. In the cold case office, Chen set up a massive data board. Each timestamp was a red pin on the Brooklyn map. She linked every log entry. 11:56, Maya appears at Atlantic Terminal. 11:58, easy pass records, Doyle's vehicle at BQE toll. 12:00 CCTV footage appears. 12:24 phone signal pings at Red Hook Pier. 1:01, vehicle leaves the area heading back to Bay Ridge. When the map was connected with white string, a seamless movement path emerged. Atlantic Terminal, Red Hook Pier, PQE, Doyle's house. The time frame from 12 ARN to 2 ARN AM formed a hazy gap. No phone signal, no cameras, no electronic transaction. Chen circled it on the map, marking dead zone. She analyzed Doyle's CDR call detail record logs more closely. No outgoing or incoming calls all that night, just a background data packet matching the Red Hook ping time. That meant the phone wasn't powered off. It was deliberately left silent, a premeditated preparation behavior. Chen saved the entire dataset as a forensic chain visualization. When she ran a test projection, the timestamps ticked by the minute, red lights moving across the map. Doyle's journey appeared like a film reel, from where Maya vanished to where she was hidden, then back to his house. There was no longer any doubt. That afternoon, Chen brought the full file to ADA Kelly Romano's office. On the table, the screen displayed the map, video, data. Romano stared intently, silent for a long moment, then said, "You've just reconstructed Maya's last night." Chen replied softly, "And Doyle was in every minute of it." Romano nodded, her voice firm. "Good. With this chain, I can get grand jury approval for an arrest warrant. We've got probable cause." Chen left the room, feeling relieved, but also weighed down. She paused in the hallway, looking through the glass pane. Out there, the city still lived, still moved, but inside those buildings, somewhere were memories of those not yet found. She knew Maya wasn't the last, but for Maya, she had gone all the way. In the end-of-day report, Chen typed the closing line, "Digital reconstructions complete. All forensic data confirmed consistent movement, linking suspect vehicle and victim's disappearance. Probable cause established." The door to the first arrest warrant in 7 years had finally opened. Romano didn't want to rely solely on data. She needed human words. People who had seen Doyle that night. Chen began reviewing the 2008 witness list. In Carter's old report, there was Frank Delgado, Atlantic Terminal parking lot security guard. His statement had been overlooked back then for lack of detail, but now it was valuable. Chen tracked Delgado down at his small apartment in Sunset Park. The old man opened the door, eyes widening in surprise at the NYPD badge. "I thought that case was closed." Chen replied gently, "Never, Mr. Frank." Delgado recalled that snowy night. "I saw a black pickup, stopped near the bus stop, engine running. Right fog lights slightly off, driver in a black jacket, tall short hair. I thought he was waiting for someone. But just a few minutes later, I heard a car door slam hard and the vehicle sped off." Chen asked, "Do you remember the time?" "Around midnight. I got off at 12, I'm sure, because I just checked the clock." The time he gave matched the 11:58 Easy Pass log and 12-hour CCTV video perfectly. Chen noted every word, his voice trembling but steady. Back at the office, she opened Doyle's family file. In the background section, she discovered he married in 2009, wife Laura Doyle. Chen called, requesting a witness interview. Laura agreed, meeting at a small coffee shop in Park Slope. "Where was your husband on the night of December 12, 2008? Chen asked. Laura thought, her voice soft. "He said he was checking equipment for the CERT team. Said the radio station was broken. He left around 11. Back near." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Do you remember if he said specifically where?" Laura shook her head. "No, but I remember he washed the truck the next morning. He said it had snow salt on it, but there wasn't much snow that day." The statement made Chen free. Doyle left home at 11, back at 2, matching the 2-hour gap in the digital journey. She noted, spousal statement contradicts suspect's alibi timeline. When Chen presented the two statements to Romano, the ADA read through and simply said, "We've got an independent witness, conflicting testimony, and technical data. I'll take it to the grand jury." 3 days later, the prosecutor's office officially requested grand jury approval for the arrest warrant of Ethan Doyle. The notice printed on paper, subject, Ethan Doyle, probable cause confirmed. Chen looked at those words, knowing the 7-year silence was about to end. 2 days after the grand jury approved the warrant, Brooklyn was thick with gray fog. The cold case unit and NYPD tactical team gathered at the parking lot near the Red Hook Search Center, where Doyle worked as coordinator. At 10:15 a.m., they moved. The CERT building was small, red brick walls, gray steel door. Doyle was standing talking to volunteers when Chen entered with 2 officers. She pulled the warrant from her jacket, Voice calm. Ethan Doyle, by order of the Kings County Grand Jury, you are under arrest for involvement in the disappearance and murder of Maya Tran, night of December 12th. The air froze. Some volunteers looked up, stunned. Doyle frowned, then gave a thin smile. You're mistaken. I was the one searching for her. Chen replied. And maybe you knew exactly where to look. Doyle fell silent. As he was cuffed, his eyes remained eerily calm. The tech team searched the office. They seized his personal computer, external hard drive, CERT activity files, and impounded the black Silverado pickup parked outside. News spread faster than expected. By noon, local websites blared headlines, "Local hero arrested in 2000." On TV, footage of Doyle in an orange reflective vest appeared next to the text, "Community volunteer leader." Brooklyn residents were shocked. A man once seen as a symbol of kindness was now suspected of murder. Romano held a brief press conference outside NYPD headquarters. We've pursued this case for over 7 years. Thanks to technology and the perseverance of investigators, justice has taken another step today. In the suspect transport van to headquarters, Doyle sat still, eyes out the window. Chen sat across, watching every micro-expression. When the van stopped at the Manhattan Bridge, he spoke, voice low. You think you understand it all, detective? The truth never has just one layer. Chen met his gaze, cold. The truth has many layers, but your guilt has only one. The convoy reached NYPD HQ at 1:45 p.m. Doyle was taken straight to interrogation. Outside, reporters crowded, flashes popping nonstop. The metal door closed behind him, the sound echoing dryly, like a period at the end of 7 years on the run. Chen paused in the hallway, peering through the frosted glass into the room inside. A case had traveled a long journey, from scattered data to warrant, from Red Hook darkness to the white light of interrogation, and now, the only thing left was the truth only he could tell. In her notebook, Chen wrote the day's final line, warrant executed, subject in custody, case status, active interrogation. She closed the notebook, took a deep breath. Justice wasn't over, but it had a face, and that face was no longer a hero. The metallic clang echoed as the interrogation room door shut behind Ethan Doyle. He sat across from Detective Naomi Chen, hands in loose cuffs, harsh white light beaming straight down onto the stainless steel table between them. In the right corner, Attorney Martin Feldman opened his briefcase, saying nothing, just nodding slightly to Chen, a signal that his client would remain silent. Chen placed the thick file in front of Doyle, cover clearly marked, Case TRN-08, victim Maya Tran, classification, homicide. She opened to the first page, voice calm but razor sharp. Mr. Doyle, this is the evidence gathered during the investigation. I'll show you each piece. If you have anything to say, tell the truth. Doyle crossed his arms, expression blank. Feldman spoke up. My client invokes his right to remain silent. Chen nodded. Of course, but before he stays silent forever, take a look at this. She turned on the screen. It displayed recovered footage from Atlantic Terminal, Maya's silhouette holding a coffee cup, the pickup's foggy, skewed headlights, and a man's figure dragging something long toward the vehicle. Chen said softly, this truck, this license plate, it's yours, isn't? Doyle didn't respond, but his fingers clenched slightly. Chen continued, easy pass records your vehicle leaving the BQEE at 11:58. Your phone pinged at Red Hook Pier at 12:24. Soil samples on your truck match the 208 Harbor District soil. Any other explanation? Feldman interrupted. Detective, I request we stop this accusatory line of questioning. Chen stared straight at Doyle, voice lowering. You were there, Ethan, and she never came back. A heavy silence blanketed the room. The wall clock ticked steadily, dry and relentless. Finally, Doyle spoke softly, voice low and hoarse. I didn't mean to hurt her. Feldman looked up. Ethan. But Doyle raised a hand, cutting him off. She screamed. I tried to stop her. She slipped, fell. I panicked, didn't know what to do. Chen didn't blink. Fell where? Near the bus stop. I was gonna call someone, but I was scared they'd think I killed her. Chen opened her notebook, scribbling quickly. What did you do after? Doyle took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the table. I put her in the truck. I drove to Red Hook Pier. That area was abandoned then, just old containers and unpoured concrete slabs. I hid her there, under the new concrete floor. The air in the room thickened. Feldman leaned back in his chair, half disappointed, half exhausted. "Ethan, stop. I advise you not to continue." But Doyle shook his head. "No, I've hidden it too long." Chen pressed on, voice low but controlled. "Can you point out the exact location?" Doyle nodded. "Next to Container 14, by the old seawall, south side of Red Hook Pier." She looked straight at him, eyes no longer angry, just the coldness of someone too familiar with brutal truths. "You know this changes everything." "At least," Doyle replied softly, "she'll be found." Chen gathered the file, stood. "I need you to sign the confession transcript." Doyle signed, hand trembling slightly. As she stepped into the hallway, the forensic response team was already waiting. Chen handed them the note, with Doyle's coordinates. "Red Hook Pier, Container Area 4. Mobilize full forensics team. I want that ground turned up within the hour." Outside, heavy rain began. It poured onto the building's metal roof, drowning out the hallway radio. Chen glanced through the window. Far off, lightning flashed south, where Red Hook was just miles away. In her hand, the confession transcript was still warm within. On it, Doyle scrawled final line. "She fell. I panicked. I took her to the pier." Chen closed the file, took a long breath. She knew, in just hours, Red Hook would no longer be a shadow in the Maya Tran case, but the place where truth was unearthed. Mobilize forensic team, Red Hook Pier. Operation starts now. At first dawn, the NYPD forensics convoy rolled toward Red Hook Pier, the abandoned construction site where Doyle confessed to burying Maya Tran 7 years ago. The van was silent, only radio static mixing with the team's steady breaths. Chen sat up front, peering through the foggy window. The city was waking, buses, coffee shops opening, commuters, none knowing that just miles south, police were heading to end one of Brooklyn's longest missing persons cases. When they arrived, the sun hadn't cleared the rusty cranes of the old dock. Red Hook Pier loomed in the mist, desolate and cold. Sign 42, the one Doyle mentioned, tilted, rusted, white letters faded on green. The ground was uneven, dusted with cement and brick fragments. Yellow tape ringed the area surveyors had marked, per the suspect's GPS coordinates. "Start here," ordered lead forensics, Dr. Linda Shaw. "We'll core through layers. If he's telling the truth, the top concrete won't be thick." Chen stood beyond the yellow tape, eyes locked on the first shovel strikes. Metal clanged on stone, dry and sharp, blending with wind whistling through the pier. After 2 hours, a tech shouted, "Something here." Everyone froze. They dug nearly 3 feet, exposing discolored concrete, like it was poured last. Techs brought in a small drill to cut it. When the first slab popped free, a dank, musty odor rose, and what lay beneath silenced them, a rolled silver plastic tarp, tightly bound with nylon cord. Shaw gloved up, knelt, carefully untying it. Sunlight slanted through, glinting off the nylon, revealing a huddled human form below. A long silence stretched. Then Shaw said softly, voice small but firm, "Could be her." Chen stood behind, breathless. 7 years of searching, thousands of file pages, and now the victim was right there. All doubts, all theories converged on one point. Techs processed samples per strict protocol. Every soil layer, every fabric fiber photographed and sealed. When the tarp was fully peeled back, they saw arm bones still wearing a round-faced watch, rusted, hands stopped at 11:58. Beside it, a silver ring engraved MT, Maya Tran. Chen stared at the items, throat tightening. No ID needed. She knew it was the girl they'd hunted for 7 years. "Bag all evidence," Shaw ordered. "We'll take it to forensics for positive ID." That afternoon, the body went to the office of Chief Medical Examiner in Manhattan. In the stark white lab, techs worked silently. Chen watched from behind the observation glass, gripping the file tight. The ID report came next day. DNA from wrist bone matched 100% with Maya's mother's 208 sample. Results stated clearly, positive identification, Tran, Maya, female, 26 years old. Beside it, cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull, consistent with impact from hard surface. Romano held the report, reading each word slowly. "Head trauma," she said softly. "So not just an accident," Chen replied, voice low. "Doyle said she fell, but the skull fracture shows much greater force. This was a blow, not a fall." Romano nodded. "We've shifted from missing person to murder." News spread fast. Local papers blared. Nurse Maya Tran's body found at Red Hook Pier after 7 years missing. Evening broadcast showed the taped-off site. White tarp over the dig. Brooklyn residents paused before screens, silent. For many, Maya Tran was a faded memory. But now, a symbol of persistence against forgotten justice. For Chen, no victory. Entering the morgue, seeing the sealed bag labeled TRN-08 Body 0001, she felt only weight. She whispered, to herself, "We found you, Maya. Now you can go home." Next day, at ADA Romano's office, Chen presented the official file, all tech data, forensics, video, confession, and now irrefutable proof, the victim's body. Romano signed the affidavit, bold strokes, then set down the pen. "From now on, we're not talking Maya Tran missing. This is second-degree murder." Chen just nodded. Outside, light rain fell, drops pattering the window, blending with city sounds. It seemed like closure, but for her, just the start of the final phase, when justice wasn't in data or maps, but making the killer face what he'd done. In her notebook, Chen wrote the final line for TRN-08 file. Human remains recovered from Red Hook Pier construction site. Personal effects, watch ring, confirm identification. DNA positive. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. Case reclassified, homicide. She closed the book, looked outside. First time in years, she could breathe easier. They'd found Maya, no longer a blurry camera shadow, no longer a name on file, but a real person, finally given back her name. And when case reclassified homicide hit the system, the cold case unit office froze. Chen stood still before the screen, feeling every fact, every sleepless night over 7 years, led here. Maya Tran's disappearance, officially, a murder. And just days later, Ethan Doyle, once a hero, would face court as defendant. That morning, Brooklyn's sky drizzled like mist. Kings County Courthouse packed with reporters, locals, and other victims' families who'd followed the case. Lines snaked the hall, cameras and mics aimed at the courtroom door. When police escorted Doyle in, he wore a gray shirt, cuffed, face calm to chilling. In the crowd, Maya's mother bowed her head, clutching her daughter's photo like it might vanish. ADA Kelly Romano stood at prosecution table, thick file stacked before her. Opposite, attorney Martin Feldman prepped defense. Judge Harold Pierce banged the gavel, voice stern. Kings County Court commences arraignment and the People versus Ethan Doyle. Romano stepped forward, voice crisp, clear. "Your Honor, prosecution presents full chain of evidence linking defendant to Maya Tran's murder, including tech data, forensics, and surveillance. We assert this is no longer a missing person, but intentional homicide." She fired up the projector. Route map, easy pass log, cell site data, restored CCTV clip, forensics photos, each piece linked unbreakable. Easy pass, Doyle's truck on BQE right after Maya left hospital. Cell site, his phone signal at Red Hook Pier in her disappearance window. Forensics, soil and cement in truck match 208, Red Hook geology. Video, figure dragging long object to pick up with skewed fog lights. Romano pointed at the screen, voice steady but heavy. No single data tells the story, but together, they speak clearer than any confession. Maya Tran left Atlantic Terminal with defendant and never returned. Defense's Feldman rose to object. "Your Honor, my client cooperated in locating the victim. He's charged on circumstantial data. No eyewitness, no DNA. We move to dismiss all charges." Romano shot back. "No notes needed. No eyewitness, but science. No DNA, but airtight timeline. Data doesn't lie, and it places defendant at the scene, time, with victim." Courtroom hushed second. Judge Pierce removed glasses, eyed both sides, voice even. "Court has reviewed the file and finds tech, physical and video surveillance evidence sufficient for probable cause. Defense motion to dismiss, denied." Murmurs rippled the crowd. Maya's mother wept. Romano exhaled softly. Chen, in back, just looked down, body lighter after years waiting. Pierce continued. "Given charge severity and flight risk, court orders defendant held without bail pending trial." Doyle said nothing. He glanced at spectator seats, eyes meeting Chen's. No defiance, no regret, just empty, like he couldn't believe it himself. As police led Doyle out, cameras flashed nonstop. Outside, headlines screamed, "Local hero turned suspect. New York's 2008 missing case reopened as murder." Romano gathered her file, Chen approached. They just nodded. No words, but their eyes shared one thought. The long journey neared end. That night, Chen stood alone on Manhattan Bridge, gazing at traffic below. She thought of Maya, Doyle, years of data archived silent, now all illuminated, and justice, though late, finally in motion. Arraignment completed. Case accepted for trial. Justice in motion. Chen wrote that in her notebook, closed the page, knowing the next chapter would declare truth in courtroom light. Cold rain poured down on Brooklyn the morning the court opened the official trial in the People vs. Ethan Doyle. 12 years after the night Maya Tran disappeared, the Kings County courtroom was packed with reporters, and local flashbulbs popped every time police led Doyle in. No longer the community hero, but the defendant in a second-degree murder case. At the prosecution table, ADA Kelly Romano stood before the jury, her voice clear, each word echoing in the hushed room. This is the story of a 26-year-old woman who vanished from Brooklyn, and this is the evidence that she never left the city. That she was killed by the very man she trusted. The large screen behind lit up. The restored CCTV video appeared. Maya's silhouette at the bus stop, the pickup truck's foggy headlight veering off, and the man's shadow dragging something toward the vehicle. Chen sat in the front row, her heart tightening, though she'd seen the footage dozens of times, it still sent chills down her spine. Romano pointed at the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, of the jury, that's the moment Maya Tran was still alive, and that, she pointed to the truck, is the defendant Ethan Doyle's vehicle. Easy pass data, cell site records and forensic soil samples all confirm this route. Atlantic Terminal, Red Hook Pier, defendant's home. Only he was in the right place at the right time. When Detective Naomi Chen took the stand, she laid out the investigation's thread, how the data was reconstructed after 7 years, every phone ping, every frame, every speck of cement dust. She ended with a short sentence, technology never forgets, even if people do. Forensic expert Dr. Linda Shaw testified next. She confirmed the soil sample from the truck matched 98% with the Red Hook area in 2008, and the peroxide traces in the vehicle indicated deliberate cleaning. Romano wrapped up the presentation. Technical, physical, and visual evidence all say the same thing. Ethan Doyle took Maya Tran's life. Across the room, defense attorney Martin Feldman tried to spin it. He argued the death was an accident, that Doyle panicked and hid the body. But when the judge asked, then why did he clean the truck, bury the body, and stay silent for 7 years, the courtroom fell silent again. That afternoon, after 3 days of arguments, Feldman unexpectedly requested a sidebar. When court resumed, he stood, his voice lowering. Your Honor, my client pleads guilty to second-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. Romano nodded. She knew this was the only way he could keep the rest of his life. Judge Pierce sentenced. Defendant Ethan Doyle is sentenced to life imprisonment, no parole for the first 25 years. So orders the court. The gavel banged, echoing through the courtroom ceiling. Maya's mother burst into tears, while Chen just bowed her head, relieved, but not joyful. Justice came late, but it came 2 weeks after the sentencing. Case file TRN-08 was officially closed. ADA Romano's office sent the final summary report, opening with her handwritten line, 12 years later, data told the truth. Romano read every line from the forensic reports, route data to the restored photos. She signed the last page and stamped it cleared by arrest. The Maya Tran case, after 12 years, closed with the truth. That afternoon, at NYPD headquarters, Chen walked into the chilly evidence room, carrying the final evidence bags. She turned in the silver fabric scrap, the silver ring engraved MT, the watch stopped at 11:58, the Red Hook soil sample, and the hard drive with the video. Each item was sealed, signed for, and placed on shelf 42B, the spot that coincidentally matched the mile marker where Maya was found. Case classification, the clerk asked. Chen replied, voice low, homicide, cleared by arrest. The printer hummed softly, spitting out the new label TRN-08, Maya Tran, closed, cleared by arrest. Chen stuck the label on the file box, pausing for a few seconds. The thin cardboard box held 12 years of a city's memories. Back at the office, Chen saw Romano packing up. On the desk, she'd left the investigation summary. Data, science and persistence did what human memory couldn't. Romano looked at her, smiling wearily. You know, Naomi, I used to think justice only came from the courtroom, but sometimes it comes from the numbers we don't ignore. Chen nodded slightly, and from the people who never stopped looking. They shook hands, then fell silent. No more words needed. That evening, Chen returned to her small Borum Hill apartment, just a few blocks from where Maya once lived. She opened the window, watching Manhattan's lights reflect off the river. On the table was a copy of Maya's photo, the girl in her nurse's uniform, smile light as if she'd never known darkness. Chen opened her notebook, writing the final line, Case TRN08, officially closed. 12 years, one truth, data never forgets. She closed the notebook, breathing deeply. Outside, the city buzzed, but something felt different, like it had just washed away an old wound. The next day, Romano left the office, and Chen moved to a new case. But passing the cold case board, she still paused at Maya's photo frame, the red solved stamp, bold in the right corner. One chapter closed, and justice, though slow, had found its way. 1 year after the sentencing, Atlantic Terminal had changed a lot. The old station was renovated, with a small memorial plaque added near the entrance, engraved, "In memory of Maya Tran, missing 208, found 20. You are home now." That morning, a simple memorial ceremony took place. Family, colleagues, and locals gathered, bringing white flowers. Spring sunlight streamed through the station's glass roof, reflecting off Maya's photo frame, her gentle face, soft smile. ADA Romano gave a brief speech. Justice doesn't erase loss, but it restores truth. Maya is no longer a victim in a file. She's a symbol of faith in data and people. Below, Maya's mother choked up. We thought our daughter was gone forever, but now, we know she was found, remembered and called by her true name. Applause rose, blending with a rumble of passing trains, like a gentle farewell. The community was still reeling to learn the killer had once led the search team. Articles rewrote the case, calling it the paradox of a rescuer turned killer. But for me, the Maya Tran case was more than a crime. It marked the rise of digital investigation in America, where data and persistence became allies of justice. At the ceremony's end, Chen stood apart from the crowd. She looked around the plaza, where snow once blanketed the night. Maya vanished. Now someone had placed a white coffee cup before the memorial, symbolizing her final moment. She smiled faintly. That afternoon, Chen returned to Cold Case headquarters. On the achievements board, Maya's photo with the solved stamp hung center, next to a metal engraving, "No case is ever truly cold." She paused, touching the frame, whispering, "You're home now, Maya." Late afternoon light streamed through the window, hitting the red solved letters and making them glow. The screen faded slowly, and the voiceover rang out deep, cool, but emotional. Time may erase every trace, but data never disappears. And when technology speaks, justice finds its voice. Outside the window, Brooklyn bustled, trains crossing Atlantic Avenue, where it all began and where the memory closed. 1 year later, Maya was no longer just a name in a file, but proof of the simplest truth. Truth can be buried, but it will always find a way to surface if someone is still looking. The story of Maya Tran, a young nurse, lost in a Brooklyn winter night, found only after 12 years, is not just a tale of solving a crime through technology, but a mirror reflecting life in America today, where data, people, and community responsibility intertwine. In a modern society surrounded by millions of cameras, GPS systems and databases, this case shows technology isn't for control, but for remembering to protect those without a voice. Detective Naomi Chen's reopening of the file, using ALPR, Easy Pass, and cell site data to retrace Maya's path, reminds us that truth never vanishes. It only waits for someone patient enough to connect the pieces. In today's America, where public trust in justice sometimes wavers, Maya's story underscores the irreplaceable role of transparency, data, and personal accountability. Ethan Doyle, once a community hero, turned out to be the culprit, a reflection of a common truth. Crime often hides behind masks of morality and reputation. The lesson for every American isn't just trust in justice, but to actively protect and demand it through truth. For agencies, this case proves the value of investing in investigative technology, where data isn't just numbers, but memory and evidence. And for individuals, Maya Tran's case reminds us that persistence from people like Chen, Romano, or the victim's family is the true force making technology a tool for humanity. In America, justice may not come quickly, but if someone keeps searching, it will always arrive. Thank you for following the journey to justice for Maya Tran, where truth was restored after over a decade of silence. If you believe every story deserves to be heard, subscribe to our channel to join us in exploring more cold cases in the next video.